Hello, and welcome to the Sunshine Study. I'm Dr. Rebecca, the Lifejoy coach and author, and I help people transform the burned out areas of their life in mind, body, spirit, and soul into some balance and some blessings so they can see their own brilliance, their own beauty, and their own belovedness. So, welcome. I live in the northeast of England, and this is a sunshine study because I love golden yellow and sunflowers because they are tall, they are golden, and they seek the light. And when the storms come, they hold one another together. And that's what my whole Life Joy work is about. Now, Life Joy isn't just life coaching and it isn't just counselling. It's a unique blend of both of those fields to fit the individual client. And I work one-to-one sessions to give people coping strategies to be wiser, braver, and more joyous. There you are, burnout into balance and beauty. So I thought I'd talk today about the term burnout because a lot of people are talking about it, and I avoided it for at least 15 years, which is an odd thing to say, isn't it, when you talk about it all the time now? I would say I have a very extensive experience of burnout. I didn't just have a couple of bad weeks or a bad month or a small transition in life where I felt exhausted or unhappy. I had more than 2 decades of severe ME, which is just about the most burned out you can get. And I had never used that phrase before. And I was in a course online. I did a year's business course online. And one of my classmates said, Becca, why don't you use this phrase? Because essentially, that's what you've been very burned out. And I said, well, I've only heard people who are reasonably well talk about it. And it was very uncomfortable. And I have had friends die from severe ME. So I'm very cautious about talking exhaustion and, worn out by the world when people have been that severely ill. So I sat and thought about this, and my friend cajoled me and said, well, burnout is different for different people, Becca. And I thought, oh my goodness, yes, it is. So what I want most in the world for my work is to help people get a bit better, a bit improved, a bit of progress. And the most important thing about that is to not get worse. Everybody forgets that. So I thought about this more and more. Is a very large number of my clients have been either off work unwell or in real trouble and teetering on the cliff edge of enormous illness. And if some way I can help them get off that cliff edge, then all of the suffering and the struggle that I've had has had some loving purpose. That's why I do the work that I do. So when we talk about burnout, I don't just mean the very, very extreme ends of it. And I've worked with some very, very severely poorly people with multiple fronts on different diagnosis, but actually restriction, illness, difficulty, it often transcends the diagnosis, doesn't it? Suffering is suffering. So when I talk about burnout, I talk about an exhaustion of mind, of physical body, and of soul, emotional and mental well-being, that you are right at the end of your limits. And then often past those limits, then you're in trouble. So burnout for different people will look like different things. I've had a lot of clients who are menopausal women who have just let their bodies do far too much for far too long. And then, this has been a big transition where something has changed in their life. I've had people who've put up with working environments that have not been conducive to their well-being mentally or spiritually. I've had a lot of clients who've been dreadfully bullied at work, lacked boundaries, and we've done something about that. So there's really something profound about trying to challenge that burnout. And so I realized that I may have been at the extreme end of the scale of burnout and had tremendous struggle and restriction because of it. But from those extremes, there were great lessons. And then that people, I didn't want to ever get to that extreme. Nobody with ME ever wants anybody else to have it. Nobody with long COVID wants anybody else to have it. Nobody with exhaustion from, chronic fatigue in different conditions wants other people to have it. But what they do need is to improve where they can, but also for people to understand rather than to experience. So that's really what this is all about. So that's why burnout was a long time coming, but it was an all-encompassing phrase. So how is your energy in mind and body and soul? Think about that. So as an academic, and I've tried to be an academic for a long time, one of the first things you do when you write an essay is you define the terms. And I always say to my clients, What does it mean for you? So there's the first important point. So I've got several points to think about burnout so we get you from that cliff edge to a little bit of safer land. So what does it mean to you? So I know with my improved health now, thank God, I'm still within very close view of that cliff edge of trouble. And if I do certain things and push my luck, I get closer to that cliff edge, and then it's a very nasty fall down. Might take years to get back up, if at all. So I never want to get that close. So I know I have to be very careful about infection. I have to be very careful about what I eat and drink. I have to be very careful about what I do physically and the number of interactions I have in a day, mentally and emotionally and spiritually. I have to watch that point of mental exhaustion, but I also watch the point of the people with whom I'm interacting. Are they joyous? Are they giving? Are they wise? Are they clever? Are they funny? Because if they're not those things, I have to be very careful about boundaries. So these are my burnout little red lights. I also have to be very careful about saying yes to too many things, and that's really difficult because I had 2 decades of enormous restriction, and I want to be out living. I want to be with people, but it has to be managed very carefully. So there's a budget of energy that you have, and it may be very small and it may be very unfair, and everybody else may have much more than you. But if you found me today, I hope we're going to help save that budget, but also make the most of it and hopefully grow it a bit. Sorry, I've just kicked the bin under the desk. I have to sit at an odd angle to get all the light to work. So think about, where are you burned out in your life? It may be that you can go running and swimming and canoeing, but you're mentally very fragile. You're very, very stressed, or that you're unwell mentally. It may be that you're mentally very strong and healthy and able to cope, but your body is not as well. So if you think about the areas where you feel you are lacking or on a thin wicket, think about your spirituality, your faith, your contribution, your loved ones, your community. Do you see them? Do you do things that fill your soul and help other people? So give yourself a little audit of what the real problem is. Have a little diagnosis think. Now, the first thing I say is be aware. And the second thing is look where you might get some professional help. Always look for the experts first. And that usually starts with a GP, but it often starts with you presenting the right information to the GP. So remember, they're trying to help you solve a problem. It's a puzzle. You present the right pieces and the most logical evidence. So there's the first thing. So define your own terms, seek help. And then this is what I spend all of my working life doing, whether that's writing a book, having a one-to-one coaching and counselling session, doing videos like this, or writing blogs. It's where can we help ourselves? Because when I was first ill, there was just no help at all anywhere. There were a few handful of really brave, wonderful doctors who were trying for us, but we were absolutely on our own. So the question was, what can I do to help myself? And there's nearly always a lot that we can do. A lot of that needs discipline and care and consistency. And it isn't motivation. What it really needs is a resilient, wise soul who's looking for joy. I'm not a big fan of motivation because I think it drops off a cliff when we don't feel like doing something. But if we set ourselves up to help ourselves just a little bit, we are pushing that burnout back. And the more we push it back, the further it gets from us and the more space we create for balance. So help yourself. What are you doing to make it a bit less bad? And what are you doing to make it a bit better? Big burnout questions. So if you know there's something you are consistently doing to soothe or calm yourself, to put something else right, just be aware of it. That's the first thing. When you know, you can't unknow. So if you are drinking too much or eating too much or spending too much or pleasing too much or working too much, what is too much for you? I find one of the easiest things to sort out with my clients is their intake here, and their sleep. Now that is, that could be 10 sessions, but as soon as we put those fundamental things right, people start to forget their burnout. They move away from it, and its pernicious effects on them reduce. So my favorite thing to start with is, what are you drinking? What's your hydration like? If you're having fizzy pops and then say to me, it's all right, their diet, That's not a good sentence. So think about what's going into you on one small front, and is it good? Is it wise? Is it healthy? Is it joyous? Is it helping you today or in the future? Or is it just smoothing something down, calming it down, stuffing it down? So just think, if you're having 6 diet pops a day, get that down to 4 this week, then get it down to 2, then get it down to 1, and then stop. Easy. And put something better in its place that's easy. So these are very small actions, but when you have very little energy, you need to do things very slowly, very gently, and very gradually. I don't like Herculean risk. I've seen my clients make consistent efforts. What's the smallest thing you could do today to make it a bit less bad? And just think about that. We nearly all could go to bed a bit earlier. We nearly all could do a bit less. We could all just look at what we're eating or drinking or thinking or listening to or watching. Just think about those. So think about having awareness, professional help, then personal help. Now, my clients nearly always know what they have to do. And it's really funny because I don't need lines to introduce clients to start to talk to me. I just say, how are you? And it all comes out. Or I say, how are you really? And as soon as you're ready to listen, people are willing and know what they have to deal with. Now, sometimes people are in such difficult corners that it feels like a macro change is the only thing they can do. But macro changes come from micro efforts. So remember that. And you may need to think that you need to move house, or you need to leave a situation, or find a better job, or, there's lots of big changes in life that can happen, but they start with being aware. And when you start those small micro steps, you have a much, much better chance at getting to the macro. So it's all made out of tiny steps. I'm a big seeker of tiny treasures. So where are you? There's the first question. And be specific about what's going wrong and why you're burned out. Now, you might be burned out because somebody at work is continually putting more work on you and you keep doing it. They're quite pleasant, they keep pressing you gently, and you keep delivering. Now, that may not be about the person pressing you. That may be about you being able to say, what would you like me to do first? What's the priority? Could we delegate this to somebody else because they have a real talent for it? I can't do it all. What's wisest first? You just need 2 or 3 good sentences that may be uncomfortable but wise to protect yourself. You have to think about this as having boundaries that bend to good people, flexible for moderate situations, and that are firm when they're needed. But you don't lose your rag, and you don't, have hysteria. You have a kind but firm consistentness. So think about where you are specifically burned out in your life, and what would you like the outcome to be? What would be the ideal outcome? What would be an improvement, or what would be a moderate outcome? Now, I often say to clients, would you take a 5% improvement? And I've never had anybody say no. But most of us want 100% improvement or 80% improvement overnight. And that is very rare. But I am very keen on a 3% gain cumulatively, and then maybe 10%. And that suddenly gets you away from that dangerous cliff edge, and you can be on safer ground. So think about that. Be glad for the micro, the small, the tiny, the treasure, because that's where consistent savings of energy come from, and that gets you away from trouble. What do you need to start? What do you need to stop? These are important questions. I can't tell you the answers because they're different for everybody, but there will be something that you know that is unwise that you are consistently doing that you shouldn't do. Now, we could talk about this forever, and I will make lots more videos about burnout. But I had between 12 and 40 weeks a year, housebound, bed, or in hospital for more than 20 years. And I didn't go from 40 weeks a year so terribly ill, and the other 12 weren't even much better. It was just that I had the odd little trip out or managed something in a day or a week or a year. But I thought about this is, what can I do? My first goal was to get this down a chunk of weeks. And one of the reasons I was in that bedroom so ill was that I'd get a lot of infections and they would absolutely knock me out. So the goal had to be to reduce my vulnerability and my exposure. How do I do that? So work backwards. And I think that first year I took 4 or 5 weeks out of bedroom into the front room, which was enormous. I would have taken that deal. I wasn't swimming, I wasn't rock climbing, I wasn't back at university, but what I was is I was marginally more comfortable. So if you take 3% off your burnout, 5%, 10%, you're already making much more progress. And those early efforts are the most difficult, but often the most profound, that give you some traction. And then think about, what would your ideal be, and where did it start to go wrong, and what can you do about it? I'm a huge believer in self-reliance, self-responsibility, but also proper self-care starts with self-discipline. Was it that you just didn't go to bed early enough because you wanted the house picked up before you went to bed? Can you just leave the house a bit messy? Can you make some peace with that? Is it that somebody's in your head saying, you're no good unless the house is perfect? Think about that. Think about where you're actually having some rest, reset, renewal, rejuvenation. Because lots of us are very uncomfortable with the concept of rest, very uncomfortable. And rest is different from sleep, and it's different from gaming or hobbies or telly or any of those things. Rest is a very personal thing, and I'll do another video on rest, but it is an investment that is invaluable. So think about, what is your attitude to rest and resetting. And one of the things that I now found very difficult is staying in. Happy home days, I've renamed them. They're not unproductive, they're not wasted, they are happy home days where I am refilling wisely. If you've been out 5 days in the week, you might need a happy home day, a day of rest. That might not mean lying around, it might just mean that you have quiet, or you do something you love, or you get the washing done. But think about partnering up some quiet stillness that your body and mind and soul can reset. And then think about doing something for a little period of time, like putting more water in, sorting out your sleep, and assessing how it is going after a few days or weeks. And if you could just increase that a bit, or do you need to decrease it, or what is wise for you? And then you will find that when you are more comfortable, there is much more space for joy. Now, this phrase, work-life balance, I didn't use that for years either with clients. I just want you to have what is wise for you, that will keep you as well as possible for as long as possible, and that doesn't let things spillage by being unconscious about something. So think about, what is the evidence of your current life telling you? Because the evidence is all around us. They're the outcomes of actions and behaviors. Can we look backwards and see the intention and the motivations behind them, and see if they are wise for us? So you will hear me talk a lot about joy, because joy is, I think, a God-given right and a purpose, but it also makes us feel most alive. But we have to have wise concepts of what joy is for us. So joy for me is good people, it's fresh air, it's seeds, it's the seaside, it's hills, it's trees, it's little children, it's babies, it's making something better. And one of the simplest joys in my life is to think, oh, I need to do that, and then being well enough to do it. And if that's washing up or cleaning the sink or going in the shower or putting my shoes away, I find great joy in the most mundane tasks, because I couldn't do them for so long. Nobody is happier than I am to have a shower and take myself. And there will be so many people who would swap with you. We just have to protect and cherish your energy in its different arenas, so that you are not close to burnout. Burnout is a big old sign that something is too much, too often, too harsh for you. Let's pull that back so we don't see that horrible red flag. We've got to protect you. We've got to keep you from the cliff edge, be respectful of the cliff edge, and live in such a way that you don't think you will get close to it again, because you know you make the wisest choices. That's not always easy, but it is always helpful. So my friends, I hope that helps. If you could like and subscribe, that is joyous. We will help you more and more. That was my whole purpose of doing this. is that I've had so much struggle and suffering and restriction that there are great lessons and strengthening of the soul from them that I don't want you to have them. That's the point. I don't want you to be burned out. I don't want you to know about it. And if you are, I want to help you back out of it as far as we can. And the further out we are together, the more joy, the richer your life will be. So, my friends, take care, God bless, be safe, and I'll leave you with my favourite quote: hope needs us to make it happen. I hope for you. Take care.